All right, it's still good morning, Anambra. And this year, WHO and partners will mark World Malaria Day by celebrating the achievements of countries that are approaching the achieving malaria elimination. They provide inspiration for all nations that are working to stamp out this deadly disease and improve the health and livelihoods of their population. And we keep asking, where is the place of Nigeria in the whole of this celebration? In the studio this morning, we are going to find out where actually we are at the level of eliminating malaria as the world marks World Malaria Day 2022. My name is Nonye Nwokoye, and in the studio this morning, I have a malaria expert from Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital, Nnewi. She is also a pharmacist of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. I have pharmacist Edith Anyakwo. Good to have you in the studio, Edith.
Good morning. Thank you. Happy to be here today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now, in the whole of this celebration, the WHO, they want to celebrate countries of which we know that there are countries that have successfully eliminated malaria or, curbed it to a level, a manageable level. So where are we in the whole of this celebration as Nigerians?
Well, that's a very tricky question because as it stands today, malaria is one of the diseases or infections that is of great global health importance, and that's because globally every year about 600,000 people die because of complications arising from malaria. And unfortunately, Nigeria happens to rank highest when it comes to malaria cases in the whole world. Because out of this number that I just mentioned, a third of it is contributed, a third of those deaths arise from Nigeria. And the meaning is that out of in every 1 hour, about 60 to 140 people die from malaria complications. And these people are resident in Nigeria. So it's really of great significance that all hands should be on deck to curb this menace, because we can do it if we put our hands to do so.
All right, in all of this malaria issue, I'm most passionate when we talk about malaria in Nigeria, and sometimes I'm not happy with the way we keep seeing billboards every day or every time of new malaria drugs, improvement on new malaria drugs. What actually stops us as a people from uprooting this from the roots, instead of providing drugs? And they will also tell you that drugs have side effects. What stops us from doing things that will help us to nip malaria in the bud?
I think sometimes it might just be lackadaisicality on the part of Nigerians, because I believe that this is achievable. And I'm actually here to say that malaria can actually be eradicated in Nigeria. It can be eradicated. And I'm also of the opinion that prevention is definitely better than cure. If we're able to prevent these diseases, then of course we'll be able to eliminate the deaths and the complications that arise from these things. And the preventive measures are very simple.
All right, hold it there. The program is Good Morning Anambra, looking at 2022 World Malaria Day. We're going to take a short break here. When we return, we're going to look at the best way to prevent malaria, and of course, if we are actually doing what we are supposed to do as a people to curb malaria. That will be after the break. Do join us again.
Great news for Anambra Broadcasting Service ABS audience. You can now watch ABS television through any of these ways.
Buy a terrestrial antenna and connect to your television. Search ABS Channel 24 Oka or ABS Channel 27 Onitsha. Install StarTimes cable decoder and search ABS Channel 113. Install Metro Digital cable decoder and search ABS Channel 29.
Watch ABS TV on your smart TV or smartphone by downloading Anambra Broadcasting Service app on Google Play Store. Also watch via ABS Facebook page at ABS Radio Television and ABS YouTube page at ABS Television Oka.
ABS TV is now also on satellite. You can watch us from anywhere in Nigeria and other African countries. Simply install our TV decoder brand and tune to channel 315 or install any free-to-air satellite decoder and search for ABS TV.
Whichever option you choose, stay abreast of breaking news, documentaries, children's shows, talk shows, comedy, sports, movies, and lots more on your darling TV station.
For adverts and program sponsorship, contact 0803-388-8526 or 0806-883-9902.
ABS, Heartbeat of the East.
All right, on the program we've been joined by Professor Dennis Aribodo, who is the Southeast Coordinator, Association of Civil Societies on Malaria, Immunization and Nutrition, ACOMIN. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right, before you came in, we were actually looking at, the world that the WHO is trying to celebrate countries of the world that have been able to eradicate malaria. And we were asking, where is the place of Nigeria in the whole of the celebration?
Yeah, Nigeria, unfortunately, remains the crying baby in malaria control, because as we speak today, Nigeria has the highest burden of malaria in the world. 27% of the global malaria burden is in Nigeria. 23% of the global malaria death is in Nigeria. What that means is that we still have a long way to go. Countries in Africa have even eradicated malaria as latest as 2019. Countries like Algeria, Tunisia, Libya in Africa has eliminated malaria. China eliminated it last year. And most of the drugs we take in Nigeria come from China. So Nigeria is still very far from achieving malaria elimination. We are still in control. For us to talk about elimination, it means that we have a prevalence of not more than 5%. We have entered the pre-elimination phase. But the way it is today, we still have a lot of work to do. And this work must be led by the political leadership of this country.
All right. Now, I think at this point it's important for us to really get to understand why this great burden. What actually is the reason why the burden is so much on Nigeria? Edith.
Okay, I would like to say that one of the reasons why it's still the way it is because enough advocacy and awareness has not been created. We need to do more. We need to enlighten the populace on the need to take more active and intentional measures to make sure that they prevent these diseases, by using mosquito nets, clearing out bushes and their gutters, and making sure that they stay in an environment that is very free of these vectors, the vectors that can transmit this parasite.
All right. Looking at the causes of malaria, one of it is just what you've said, that the breeding ground of mosquito. What are other causes of malaria? And
malaria has only one cause.
Only one cause.
The cause of malaria is a parasite called Plasmodium falciparum. That's the only cause. Other things are factors associated with it. For example, mosquitoes transmit the parasite. No mosquito is born with the parasite. Mosquitoes are born version of the parasite. They pick this parasite in the environment and they transmit it. So it is that mosquito, it is that parasite which mosquito carries that causes malaria. Other things are tangential. For example, we live in a tropical world where the climate is favorable to mosquito breeding. We have enough rainfall for mosquito breeding and the rest of them. But let me tell you that countries like Pakistan, like Palestinian, they used to have worse malaria than Nigeria, but today they don't have malaria again. So it's not about the climate or environment, it's about the political will.
Now, can we borrow a leaf from some of these countries? You know,
the solution is here.
You've actually mentioned the African countries, so it's no longer the issue of maybe America or UK.
No, even Mauritius.
So you've mentioned Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, and so many of them. These are African countries. So what is actually holding us from taking a cue?
What is holding us is that we have not, she said what is very important, advocacy. There should be continuous advocacy. Advocacy for what? For resources.
Yeah.
Resources has to be provided. What Nigeria does is that Nigeria relies on donor support. And if I'm they come here, they take one community or two LGAs and do what they would and go away. While the over 90% and 95% are still untouched. So Nigeria has to call this a priority. Give it a 5-year project that we want to eliminate malaria in Nigeria within 5 years. And there are tools to do that in Nigeria. The human personnel is there. What we are lacking is a political commitment. Go to the budget of the state. Go to the budget of the government area. What is budgeted for malaria control? Go and investigate. In the state, what is budgeted for malaria control? At the federal, what is budgeted? They just rely on these donor partners, UK aid, US aid, Japan aid. It cannot solve malaria problem in Nigeria. We have to make a deliberate effort.
Okay, this is not the first time Nigeria is doing something about malaria, because I've heard about malaria elimination program where, you know, there is this call for people to sleep under mosquito treated nets, and so many other programs. Every now and then they roll out programs for malaria elimination programs. So you know.
Just scratching the surface. I give you an example. After 2014, what has happened to net distribution in Anambra State? Nothing. This net expires within 2 to 3 years and should be replaced. One net is at average of 2,000 to 3,000 naira. How many Nigerian families can afford that? Last year, our NGO went into communities in Anambra State, Nebo, Nteja, and Azia, to find out what the people feel about malaria. And they told us that they need free mosquito nets. Free. They need free drugs. These drugs are not there in the primary centers. They want doctors to be in the primary health centers to attend to them, because in Anambra State, what you have today is about 10 doctors for 21 LGA. Can you imagine that for the primary health center? And they listed all that, and they made commitment to do their own. I am happy that as we are speaking now, the state, in collaboration with, I think, a global fund, will distribute malaria mosquito nets between May and July this year. When this happens and ends, what is the program to continue to sustain it? What is the program to make sure that ACTs are in the primary health centers, that SPs, supporting parameter, which parent women take, are in primary health centers and are free? What is, because somebody has to pay for it. That is where the problem is. Yeah. That is where the problem is. So there must be budget for it. Even if donors are coming, when donors come, you channel them to where things should go. You don't just allow them to come and do the way they like. So we must take political leadership of the fight against malaria. Without that, we can't go anywhere.
Okay, what do you think we can do as a people, you know, in the fight against malaria? As individuals, what do you think people can do to help at this point?
Okay, like he has already said about said something about advocacy, but I think as a state, on the state level, we also need to do more. While talking presently, there are about 19 northern states that are profiting from, aids from USAID and the President's Malaria Initiative. And what they do is that they provide free mosquito nets for 19 states in the north. All the 19 states in the north profit from that. But Anambra State is not one of them. And it's not really political per se. This is because these northern states reside in the Sahelian region. And research has shown that they suffer up to 30%. They have that 30% risk of contacting this infection, while the coastal areas and the rainforest areas, represent about 16% of that percentage. So even though the nation is centering or, concentrating on the northern states, I think there is also room for Anambra State, as a state to do something as a state. If we're not being funded by these agencies, we either advocate for funding or we do it ourselves. Do you understand? How? Because we can now provide mosquito-treated nets for these people, for pregnant women and for children, because these are actually the vulnerable groups. They are those that are most susceptible to, progressing or having these infections aggravate towards complicated or severe malaria. And the result is end organ damage or death. But this can easily be prevented. Because if a pregnant woman comes down with malaria, there is that tendency that she could suffer from a lot of, things like miscarriages, give birth to preterm babies, or babies that are of low birth weight, and other things like anemia and other things. There could be liver infection or liver diseases as a result of something that could have been prevented. So we need to do more as a state. It's either we advocate for this support because it's there, or we do something, we look inwards and then do something to make sure that our people are protected.
Okay, now everybody knows that an average Nigerian suffer malaria maybe once in a month or once in 2 months. And the prices of drugs, of malaria drugs, is, I don't know how many Nigerians can actually afford that, because the least malaria drug should be around 1,300 or 1,500.
2,000 naira for the original one.
That's why prevention still remains better than cure.
Another thing is, you getting the drugs, and maybe if you're down with malaria and your children, maybe 1 or 2 are equally down, how much will it take you to really get drugs to treat them? Now, it brings us to the question of, instead of these drugs that even the medical doctors he will always tell you that it's not the best. What's the way forward? What do we do?
What we will do is very simple. Number one, we will work towards prevention. That prevention, as of today, we should work towards eliminating breeding habitats, both in our homes and in the environment.
How do we do that?
Anywhere you see water collecting, that water should be either covered or filled with sand on the road. We can do that to reduce mosquito breeding. We should also ensure that the families and individuals have nets, treated nets. There are new ones now that are resistant. I mean, that are more active than the one that was used before. There's new type now. Make sure it is available to families and encourage them to sleep on it every night. In that way, you reduce that. There's what is called indoor residual spraying, whereby you spray walls of inside of houses. With Anambra State did it in 2008. In 2012, we did it in Oka North and Oka South. But because it's very expensive, government tried to run away from it. But if they can do it for 3 consecutive years, I can assure you that malaria can be eliminated. So, but these things I'm saying cannot happen without money. That is where the problem is. Because government will prefer to go and tie a road of maybe 500 million or 1 billion naira than putting 500 million or 1 billion to malaria control or education, because they want what people will see. But the greatest investment is on the human beings. If you don't fund education, if you don't fund health, you have not funded anything. Yeah. You have not funded anything. So we must call it a priority. Our NGO has gone to ministries. We have gone to economic planning to encourage them to budget for malaria control. We have gone to House of Assembly. We started with the Speaker. We have gone to the Executive Secretary, Anambra State Primary Care Development Agency. We've gone to them. We've gone to Asia. We've even gone to Town Union just to advocate that this is a priority. Funds must be made available. We put in this fund to research. We have to research on what progress is being made. We have to research on other innovative ways of addressing this malaria problem. Because most times we depend on what the foreign people have done. There are trees or plants we can plant in this environment, and they will repel mosquitoes. Our grandfather did something like that. They bring some leaves, put it on the windows like this in the night. You don't see mosquitoes coming inside the room. So it can be improved upon. But the important is that the political leadership, the government itself, at all levels, should budget for this.
Okay, the theme for 2022, the theme for this year's malaria, zeroing in on malaria elimination. No, I think that's, that's not the theme. The theme, is it zero malaria?
Harnessing innovation.
Okay, harnessing innovation. Innovation to reduce
disease, malaria disease burden, and save lives.
Okay. How are we going to do that, given what we have just said? How do we go about achieving that?
It's very simple. Government has partners they can work with. Yeah. I know in Anambra State, ACOMIN is there. We have a state ACOMIN leadership. We have NGOs that have experience in malaria control. Where government cannot reach, that is where CSO can come in. Reaching the people, sensitizing them, but government has to provide the resources. The government has to provide the tools. But the people are there. So the government has to partner with civil society organizations and other stakeholders, including private sector. Some of them can be given tax rebate for providing services towards malaria elimination. Government can do that. It's a matter of policy.
You know, what are these innovations that we need to harness? Okay,
there's one presently going on in the north. You know, it's called CMC, which is a seasonal malaria chemotherapy prevention. It's happening in the north right now. And what it involves is that there's a seasonal distribution of anti-malarials. Actually,
free of charge?
Free anti-malarials.
Okay.
Combination, it's actually a combination drug of sulfadoxine, pyrimethamine, and amodiaquine. Okay. You know, these are given to children below the ages of 5, and it's given every month within the period of July and October. It's done every season, and right now it's ongoing in northern states. So we can also cash into that. It's not even being sponsored by the Nigerian government. Like I said, it's being sponsored by Global Fund and the Presidential Malaria Intervention Initiative. So we can also latch onto that. We can key into that. There are so many things. It's just for us to have that political will, like he said, and try to harness and make use of these available resources.
All right, we'll take another short break here. When we come back, we're going to look at, you know, I know in 2016 there's this move for us to get a vaccine against malaria. I don't know the level it has gotten to as we speak. So when we come back, we look at that, whether we've actually it's been successful to have a vaccine to fight this scourge, malaria. That will be after the break.
Your husband, when you're too busy, you should also take time for your family. Because when you leave it for the school, oh, my child is going to a good school, I interviewed the teachers and they are doing well, they can take care of my kids. We discover that they are not doing anything because what they are working for is to get paid. So you should also go back home and then take care of the children. Look into their activities. Invite their friends over to the house.
Great news for Anambra Broadcasting Service ABS audience. You can now watch
All right, it's still 2022 World Malaria Day, which we are discussing in the studio this morning with Aribodo, Professor Dennis Aribodo, and Edith Anyako in the studio. Now, in 2016, to be precise, I got a hint that there's this plan to get a vaccine against malaria, which I believe is going to help in the fight against malaria in our nation, Nigeria. So how far have we gone with that? Aribodo, can you help?
I think WHO has approved the first malaria vaccine.
Okay.
That was about 2 years ago. But you know, it's only for children under 5 years of age, and it doesn't give up to 50% protection. So we still need other strategies to help. It gives about 30 to 50%. So but it's targeted to children, but it is not yet part of the routine medical services given to children in Nigeria here. Based on the trials they did in Burkina Faso and some other countries, they are able to now approve it, but it has not actually gone down. So as we speak today, there is an approved malaria vaccine targeted at children.
But we've not started using it. You know, you remember when COVID came out, people were of the opinion why that the vaccine came out so sudden. You know, when we have malaria has been with us.
It's because COVID is a big man disease.
You know, there's something you said earlier, the effects of malaria on our bodies, which can affect the kidney, can affect other essential parts of human being. You know, what actually is delaying us from getting something that will nip malaria in the body when we know that it has other side effects when not treated?
Well, like you said, other countries have practically eradicated malaria. So it's actually a Nigerian problem. And you know what is obtainable in Nigeria? Everything is in the pipeline. And sometimes we might not be aware. So it's a matter of political will, you know? So the nitty-gritty is that these things are there, but we have to harness them. And of course, I know that there might be a lot of excuses like clinical trials. You cannot bring out these vaccines without adequate clinical trials and everything. We hear that a lot. But the truth is that if they want to get these vaccines to the ordinary man within the shortest period of time, they would. Just like they were able to bring down the COVID-19 vaccine, you know, very fast. Like my colleague said, he said it was a big man's disease, or it still is a big man's disease. And because it was affecting everybody and it cut across the globe, there was that urgency to do the needful. So if we're to take on that approach in Nigeria, I'm sure we would achieve a lot.
All right, let me ask this question, you know, talking about reducing the burden of malaria in Nigeria. What happens when we don't do the needful? Where do we see ourselves?
We see more death. Remember I told you that Nigeria carries 23% of the malaria deaths. As at last year, over about 700 human beings died of malaria. More than 80% of them are our children, and of course, children of the poor. Pregnant women are another most vulnerable group, especially those in their first and second pregnancies. So we'll see more of those deaths if we don't do what we're supposed to do. That doesn't mean that adults like us who have partial immunity who don't die from it. We die from it. But the people, the most vulnerable are these helpless people under fives. Go to our localities, you see them dying. And the worst of it is that they now rely on local herbs, which damage their kidney more. So that's where there is danger. Because people cannot afford to use 2,000 naira, which they use to cook a pot of soup, to go and buy drug. Assuming you have 3 children and all of them have this disease, you require 6,000 naira. Even an average civil servant, can he comfortably afford that in Nigeria? So it means that our people, particularly the poor, the government should be for the poor. There will be more debt. There's no doubt about it. we that maybe seem to be privileged to be at certain level may not be feeling it. But when you go to the localities, you see these things on a daily basis.
All right, Edith, now, what are the challenges we could face as a people in harnessing innovation to reduce the malaria disease burden and to save lives? What are the challenges you think we can face as a people?
I think the greatest right now is just the financial aspect.
The funding.
And then, of course, the political will.
Does it mean we don't have money?
There is money, but another thing is channeling it in the right area. Is the money that we have, is it being made available? You know, is it being channeled into these areas that's of utmost importance? You know, so these are questions we need to be asking. We're actually blessed, but everybody can also attest to the fact that we're not reaping of the blessings that God has given us. You know, we're a very rich nation, but because of corruption, a lot of things are going wrong.
It's about priority, prioritizing our needs. If we rank the disease we have in Nigeria, I can assure you, even from our community diagnosis within Anambra State, every community will say that their number one problem is malaria. So if government...
Of course, most people in Nigeria, hardly... But there's a question you will answer whether every fever is malaria, because...
of course not.
Every fever is not malaria.
Every fever is not malaria.
If malaria is our major health problem, what stops our political leaders from giving it a priority? If we attack malaria strongly for 5 years, we will free some resources for other things in Nigeria.
Yeah.
If we can attack malaria, give it a 5-year project, this is 2022, by 2027, and start giving an award to states that eliminate malaria. States can eliminate malaria in their states. States can do that. So we can do that, just that our political leaders, and you don't blame them because the followers are, if you pardon the language, docile, because we should hold them to account, and tell them what they should do for us.
Yeah.
That is it. Yes, roads are good, buildings are good, but without health, we are nowhere.
All right, you need to stress the point now, whether every fever is malaria, because the way we go about it in Nigeria is like every fever is a malaria.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge that we are facing, because the normal person, you know, there's this survey, medical health survey, that is carried out in Nigeria every 5 years. And he found out that 54% of caregivers would always go to the local pharmacies, the patent medicine stores, and, you know, the areas, maybe the markets, the open markets around them, to source for drugs when they come down with fevers, you know?
Okay, sorry, at this point, we like to apologize for the mix-up earlier when we went for break for street walk. Let's bring it your way now to feel the pulse of the masses on the issue at hand. We'll be right back.
Drainages with plastics and waste helps breeding of all these pathogenic substances. So the government has to have a way of cleaning the drainages. Of course, I know it should be in partnership with the people. So when drainages are clean at that level, it will reduce the breeding of all those pathogens. Then at family level too, residents should be able to clean their houses and the surroundings, and by that it will reduce the breeding ground for malaria and the rest of it. So mosquito, which leads to the malaria.
Malaria is a very common disease in sub-Saharan Africa, especially Nigeria here. So it's always common. It's not something that, because often at times, most people, in a year, they must have a bout of malaria. Well, you have anti-malaria drugs that takes care of it. Well, for me, I usually go for lab. Malaria has symptoms, so if anytime I develop certain symptoms that are related to malaria, I usually go for lab and treat myself with anti-malaria drugs. In Western countries, the environment is quite different from here. So, and I think it's a cold region too. So malaria cannot survive in a cold region. So these are I think the environment factors are the major cause.
I normally have malaria maybe a 3 months interval. So when I have the symptoms, which is weakness, slight headache, I will rush to the pharmacy and buy drug. Anyone they prescribe for me, I don't have any particular one I'm taking. So anyone they prescribe for me, I will buy. Then I will also treat my children. I don't need to see the symptoms in them. I will just treat them maybe 3 months, sometimes 2 months, depending on how the mosquito bite was that time. I noticed that if I go for immunization, they normally give us a mosquito net. The government, I think, is a good one. But sometime now I noticed that when I went for my last baby's immunization, they did not give me that. So that their mosquito net is going a long way because it's treated and you find out that it's attracting mosquitoes. Just attract them and hold them. So it's a good measure. And if they should also give us drugs, the government now, or they will reduce the prices because these malaria drugs, they are high when you go to pharmacy. It's not everybody that can afford it.
I don't even have malaria. The reason is that I drink a lot of water, and water have a cleansing action on the system, overall system of the body. By the time you drink a lot of water, you won't have any malaria at all, talk less of treating it. When you drink water, the volume of water you drink will now prevent you from having malaria. Right now, I have taken 3 sachets of water. And maybe before the day runs out, I will take about 6 sachets, making it 9. Government will give enlightenment campaign, just moving around through radio, television, and the media, through the media. Enlightenment campaign that will stop it. Thereafter, if they have government hospitals, they can subsidize the cost of buying drugs for those who cannot afford to drink water.
All right, we've gone to the field to feel the pulse of the masses. And of course, the last man that spoke, Edith, what do you have to say about when I drink a lot of water, I won't suffer malaria?
It was quite hilarious because that is not actually so. And I'm sure the reason why he's been enjoying some kind of immunity against malaria is because of his age. At that age, the level of parasites that would, in the system, that would naturally result in an infection might not really do so, as opposed to that same level of parasite in a child under the age of 5. Okay. So drinking water does not actually infer or prefer any sort of immunity against malaria.
All right, quickly, what do you think we can do as individuals, as a government, in the fight against malaria?
Number one, I will urge our governments, local, state and federal, to partner with the communities and CSOs to fight this malaria. I would also want them to adequately budget for malaria control activities. It is a very expensive project. I would also urge them to tap into development partners, which is going on, and they drive the process. I will urge them to also take the political leadership and say this is a project that we are going to conclude. And I have to mobilize the masses so as to give the support and do the individual activities that one can do to ensure that this thing is eliminated. It is not a rocket science. Malaria can be eliminated in Nigeria.
All right, thank you very much. Professor Dennis Aribodo, you are a Southeast Coordinator, Association of Civil Societies on Malaria, Immunization and Nutrition, ACOMIN. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. All
right, thank you so much, Pharmacist Edith Anyakwo. You are a malaria expert from Anambra University Teaching Hospital, Newe. And of course, you are part of Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. Thank you for coming.
It was my pleasure.
All right. And that's how we wrap up the show. For now, thank you so much. My name is Nonya Mokoye. Bye for now.
This is ABS, Heartbeat of the East.
Storms only form in the tropics because the sea surface temperature needs to be at least 26 degrees Celsius. This warm water causes the air to rise quickly. As the air cools down again, it is pushed aside by more warm air rising below it. This cycle causes strong winds. Tropical storms have winds faster than 117 kilometers per hour. There are 3 different types of tropical storms. Hurricanes, these develop over the North Atlantic Ocean, typhoons are formed over the Northwest Pacific, and cyclones are formed over the South Pacific and Indian Ocean. The storms formed in the Northern Hemisphere rotate anti-clockwise, whereas those in the Southern Hemisphere rotate clockwise, but they are all formed in the same way. As well as tropical storms, there are also tornadoes. So what's the difference between tropical storms and tornadoes? Hurricanes, typhoons and cyclones are formed over water, whereas tornadoes are formed over land. A tornado happens as the ground temperature increases, moist air heats and starts to rise. When the moist air meets cold dry air, it explodes upwards, causing a thundercloud. A storm then quickly develops. Upward movement of air can become very rapid. Winds from different directions cause it to rotate. When it hits the ground, that is when it is called a tornado, and it can last several seconds to more than an hour. The air in it spins at over 475 kilometers per hour. Another difference between tornadoes and tropical storms is that tornadoes are not given names because they have a shorter lifespan compared to tropical storms. So why are storms given names? Well, storms are given names like Cyclone Idai by weather experts so they can be tracked and publicized. This can help people affected to prepare. Other storms to have hit southern Africa have included Cyclone Benita, Cyclone Nadia and Cyclone Fabio. So how do weather experts know when a cyclone is coming?
We can spot cyclones 4 or 5 days before they start to develop and head towards land. During this time we release weather warnings such as yellow or amber. And then once it's about to hit land, we release weather warnings in red and then purple for a major cyclone.
The Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am. The presence of the Lord is the fullness of the Lord. As we are changed and transformed to the image of the Father, Holy Spirit, we welcome you. I see God moving in this place. Let your power, let your presence. Many never broken homes in the name of Jesus. Many broken hearts. In the name of Jesus. I see God moving in this place. The presence of the Lord overflow in this place.